I'm aware that many of you have expressed a desire for online counseling, and to that effect, we have a sponsor who will help you and assist you in that respect. So if you will, go beneath the video, you'll find a link to our online counseling sponsor. They have a whole team of counselors that can help you. Practice self-care, get the help that you need. I'd like to begin with a thought that may seem a little counterintuitive at first, but I think the more you ponder it, the more sense it will make. And that is intimacy or relationship closeness actually increases when we see each other's flaws, or we experience difficulties or strains, or we know about one another's weaknesses, and then we're able to talk through them in a very constructive kind of way. We're able to dig and know each other at that level. You see, I start with the assumption it's real easy for me to like you and you to like me when it's nothing but, blossoms and fluffy clouds and all the rest, and it's all good-natured. But human nature is such that as we get to know each other, we're going to find out that there are imperfections. And so that being the case, we need to have a willingness and even sometimes I'll even say an eagerness to talk things out with one another so that we can grow in the old iron sharpens iron kind of mentality, and we can learn because of our experiences with each other. Now, I want you to think, let's suppose that you have someone in your world and you know that there are some strains or difficulties that might be there. And so you decide, well, I want to grow our relationship, so let's talk. And it could be something really large that you want to talk about. I've had people that have to have interventions, for example, with family members, or it could be something that's small, but it's agitating and annoying and it's ongoing. But you sit down with that person and you say something to the effect of, hey, I'm concerned about such and such, or there's something I'd like for you to consider. Now, there are many individuals, when they hear words like that, the hair on their back goes up and they just can't receive it. They go straight into denial mentality. Many individuals will instinctively, when they're confronted, even if it's mild or especially if it's not mild, they'll instinctively go into a defensive posture. Sometimes they just completely withdraw from you. Other times they'll ridicule what you have to say, or they may deflect and say, well, it wasn't me, it was this over here. They may minimize or even invalidate the things that you're trying to say. They can go into the justification mode. They can turn it into a really quick argument and where it just explodes quickly and you're thinking, where did that come from? They can stonewall. All of that is part of an individual's sense of denial. And I'll even go so much further as to say, let's suppose that what you're trying to say to that person might be misinformed. Even so, I would say, how hard is it to just simply say, I'll listen to you and I'll consider what you're having to say and then we can talk it through. Now, let's recognize that when a person goes into denial, they have all sorts of fears that they're sitting on. When they say that they can't receive your input, or they only want to hear the things that are delightful and friendly, or they won't ponder anyone else's perspective, there's a fear that says this is something that's too much for me, and I can't manage what it is that you're trying to say to me. So then we might ask, well, so when people go into this denial, what are they afraid of? Well, glad you asked. Lots of things, actually. They're afraid of being rejected. They can be afraid of being deemed as unworthy. They may be afraid of being placed in a subordinate position. They may be afraid of losing. Many times these individuals who go straight into denial see relationships more as a competition. It's a very narcissistic way for people to respond. Who's up, who's down, who's better, who's worse. And as a result of that kind of thinking, they fear being in the losing position. They may be afraid of being judged. They may be afraid of looking weak, and they may be afraid of looking less than ideal. And giving that person the benefit of the doubt, the person that uses a lot of denial may have a deep history where they actually have been exposed to people who've not had good and clean and constructive motives when differences come up. And as a result, they carry around a great deal of pain from the inside out. And so you come along and you're trying to be constructive and they're just not able to do it. And yet, for that denier, I'm hoping that they can recognize, well, what was done to me in the past doesn't have to carry on with me in my current life and in my future. But sometimes people just have a hard time getting through their fears. Now, to that denier, I've got some questions, and that is, how are you ever going to grow and mature if you'll only receive flattering input? You know, the fact is, like I say, we each have our flaws, we have our imperfection, and if you can't talk about that, are you ever going to be able to grow? Another question is, are you so psychologically fragile that you'll just unhinge when something comes in your direction that you don't really want to hear? Or another question is, are you so ideal that you've got it all figured out? Do you really think that about yourself? And if so, what does that tell us? Because nobody's so perfect. So let's recognize relationships are a two-way street. We need each other. It's no mistake that there's a great deal of variety that's built into nature, including human nature. And so as one person looks at the world in one way and another looks at it in another, that's part of the variety that we have. Can we approach relationships with the notion that says we can grow and we can learn from one another as we share our thoughts and our concerns? Now, obviously, this implies that as you do talk about problems or difficulties, it's not done with a harsh and critical spirit, because sure enough, nobody wants to be exposed to that all over and over and over. And sometimes the person who goes into that defensive posture, that's their way of saying enough is enough. I'm tired of it. And so we don't want to take this as license just to unload whatever garbage you want indiscriminately and that implies that the person who's doing the confronting has some issues that are not very clean. But let's presume that when managed fairly, constructive discussions about our problems and our difficulties can actually be a constructive or something that's part of our growth mechanism. So to that denier, let's run through a few thoughts. First, and I know you may not want to hear this, there's something wrong with you. Now, I don't say that in a harsh and mean way. By the way, there's something wrong with me too. None of us is perfect. None of us has so much of the problems and difficulties completely eliminated and erased from our lives that we do everything exactly right. Admit that. And you're not going to fall apart when you admit that. By the way, we'll also say there are plenty of things that are right about you. We're going to factor that in too. Another thought, you can always be a learner. Just as you feel like you have a few things figured out, there might be someone who has a different angle or different needs or different history, and you'll need to continue to adjust and shift gears as you engage with people. And I'm hoping that between now and the end of your life, you can have that notion that says, I'm always willing to hear input if that means that I can learn and if I can adjust in a clean and healthy kind of way. Another thought to that person who uses denial is your influence actually goes up, not down, as you can come to terms with your flaws or weaknesses or imperfections. It's okay. In fact, it's your way of saying I'm part of the human race and I don't feel the need to lord myself over anyone else. You can be human, I can be human, and you actually have a greater sense of camaraderie when this is managed in a reciprocal and healthy kind of way. And then also we're going to say a major show of strength is when you can acknowledge your weaknesses. You're not some sort of a loser when you say, yeah, I did blow it, or yes, I do need to make a mistake, or yes, this is a habit that I'm struggling with, or this is something that I miscalculated. It's okay to say that, and you actually show yourself to be strong when you can discuss the wholeness of who you are. Now, again, I'm going to go back and say we don't want to have relationships that are so completely filled with criticism and unsolicited advice that it just creates an atmosphere where defensiveness and all that goes with it is just going to be a natural byproduct. So let's be careful about that. Having said that, let's also recognize, we go back to that notion of intimacy. Intimacy and closeness can actually increase as we're able to talk about our humanity with one another in a healthy, constructive kind of way. Notice my tone of voice. You don't have to plead. You don't have to become agitated. You don't have to be sarcastic or condescending, but we can talk and we can share. And I'm hoping that as you drop your sense of denial, you'll also see that you increase your ability to connect. Actually, it costs you nothing to hear someone else's words and thoughts, but it could gain you a great deal. Would you be willing to consider that point of view? I do hope that videos such as this will give you some food for thought. And if you've not already done so, I would encourage you to go below and hit that subscribe button. We'll keep more videos coming. This is our Dr. Les Carter channel, and we also have my Surviving Narcissism channel. But here I'm trying to address some issues beyond just straight up narcissism. If you have a need for counseling, and many people, as they're trying to sift through these kind of things, recognize that would be beneficial. If you have someone in your area, I would encourage you to seek that out. Or if you would prefer, we have a sponsor that has a link below that would take you to online counseling with a whole team of licensed professional and experienced counselors that could assist you in that regard. If you have that need, then I would encourage you to take availability of that. In addition, we have links to my webinars, my courses. We have good courses coming along, free to be, and we have a new one coming up very soon called This Is Me. It's about establishing boundaries with controllers in your life, and my books, etc. Take advantage of those. I hope that you're not one that just makes regular use of denial. I hope that there's a sense of openness and there's a sense of growth, and you can disagree agreeably. And if we can learn how to do that, then that's going to really take us to a place of maturity and closeness. Be that kind of person. And in doing so, you can be a person that says, my relationships can be steady if we go in that direction well. And on an intrapersonal level, I can be steady and be a person of peace. That's a good goal for us to aim for.